Next news. Breaking news from the White House.
Right now, the Russiagate story may be entering a completely different phase. Not another cable news food fight, not another recycled talking point. We're now talking about claims of declassified records, whistleblower interviews, and newly surfaced FBI and CIA material that supporters say could move this from argument into evidence. Tulsi Gabbard's release, the resurfacing of old House intel work, and new reporting from John Solomon are all pointing to the same question. Who directed the intelligence? Who signed off on the assessments? And who knew the narrative was shaky from the start? If that trail is now opening up, then the people who sold this hoax to America have a very serious problem. You see, for years, the establishment hid behind one phrase: trust the intelligence. But what happens if the intelligence itself was shaped, narrowed, or directed to produce a pre-selected outcome against President Trump? See, that's why the story matters. The story is no longer just whether Russiagate was overblown. The story is who made the decision, what documents existed at the time, and whether top Obama-era officials pushed an assessment they wanted instead of the evidence supported. And according to the claims that are now circulating, investigators interviewed around 20 CIA and FBI officials, spent thousands of hours digging, and uncovered records that had been buried in a CIA vault for years. Then you connect that to Tulsi Gabbard's declassification push, to the old Devin Nunes warnings that were mocked at the time, and suddenly a very ugly picture starts to form. This is about whether the American people were manipulated, whether Trump was sabotaged before he even took office, and whether accountability is finally coming for the people who abused the system. And while the permanent bureaucracy loves hiding the truth until it's useful to them, smart Americans, they know you don't wait until the whole crowd catches on. See, if you could go back in time and buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? The people who recognized oil early didn't just make money, they got ahead of one of the biggest economic shifts in history. And today a very similar opportunity is unfolding with silver. See, silver is more than a precious metal. It's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the mass build-out of modern industry. That's why I want you to check out Noble Gold Investments. Go to nextnewsgold.com right now and learn how you could qualify for a free 10th ounce gold coin and start protecting your future with real assets. Because when the truth finally breaks wide open, the people who are prepared early are always the ones standing strongest. Now here's the twist the corporate media don't want you to touch. See, it's not just about Barack Obama as a headline. See, the deeper issue is the machinery. Multiple voices are now zeroing in on how the intelligence community assessment was built, what was excluded, and whether conclusions were effectively ordered from the top. See, that's a totally different battlefield. If the fight moves from media spin to document trails, interview notes, and internal records, then the same people who laughed off these questions for years may soon have to answer them under oath. 20 CIA and FBI agents dropped a political nuke on Obama by confirming that Obama and a former CIA director fabricated the Russia hoax, which was locked away in a CIA vault for nearly a decade to discredit President Trump's election by manipulating intelligence. Watch.
Fox News alert, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, releasing a bombshell report today that shows a conspiracy by a sitting president, Barack Obama, and his intel agencies to sabotage the president-elect, Donald Trump, brainwash the electorate, and undermine the legitimacy of an election.
There is irrefutable evidence that detail how President Obama and his national security team directed the creation of an intelligence community assessment that they knew was false. They knew it would promote this contrived narrative that Russia interfered in the 2016 election to help President Trump win, selling it to the American people as though it were true. It wasn't.
Gabbard got her hands on a House intel report that's been locked away in a CIA vault for almost a decade. Investigators spent over 2,000 hours looking into how the Russia hoax was born, interviewing 20 CIA and FBI officials. And it turns out that the Obama administration doctored the intelligence to make it look like Putin and Trump stole the election. A month after Trump beat Hillary, Barack Obama wasn't satisfied with his intelligence reporting and ordered his CIA director to create a new assessment of how Russia interfered with the election. This was a highly unusual move. John Brennan handpicked 5 CIA analysts to write the assessment, and they were siloed. None of them knew what the other was doing. And only one analyst was in charge of drafting this report. There was nothing routine about this, and it was a rush job to publish before Trump was sworn in. Nothing was coordinated with the other intelligence agencies either. Basically, this was home cooking for Barack Obama.
So if Obama and Brennan push a false intel assessment, the next question is simple. How far did the cover-up go? John Solomon says the Mar-a-Lago raid ties back to 2015 and 2016, and he names Obama as the man at the center of it.
Donald Trump's home because they had to cover up what happened all the way back to 2015 and 16. That's what that grand conspiracy, that's what the
Hillary?
So,
okay, they did these things. So there's an intel, there's a portion of the intel, CIA, FBI, whoever they are, the Department of Justice, wherever they came from.
That's right.
But they're acting on behalf of whom?
I'm going to say Barack Obama is the head of the conspiracy when they're done. He'll be an unindicted co-conspirator if they get all the evidence that they think they're going to get from the agencies. Why? We know he was told Hillary Clinton in July was hanging a fake Russian shingle. He allowed his administration to pursue a case. After the election, he was told that Vladimir Putin didn't interfere in the election to help Donald Trump, and he got it reversed and had it, even though the Intelligence Committee didn't agree, they changed it. On January 5th of 2017, 15 days before Donald Trump was in office, about to come into office the first time, they sat in a room and said, hey, the FBI has concluded Mike Flynn is an innocent man. How can we make him a guilty man? The president sat in that meeting with the FBI. He didn't belong in a meeting like that. Barack Obama set in motion. Now, was he trying to help Hillary Clinton win the election? Of course. Where this all ends, I think I would not be surprised if before the end of the summer you saw Barack Obama get a grand jury subpoena. I would not be surprised.
Wow.
Remember, he has immunity because the president.
Oh, that's right.
So he can't claim the fifth.
And the other thing.
Oh, the end of the summer. What do you think about that? So Solomon's pointing straight at Obama. In the January 5th meeting on Mike Flynn, ex-former CIA officer who worked under Brennan, makes it even sharper, saying Brennan belongs in prison. CIA officer Brian Dean White. John Brennan was my boss at the CIA, and he belongs in prison. And that's the headline right there at Fox News.
John Brennan was my boss at the CIA. He belongs in prison. Brian, that's a pretty heavy charge. Explain what your case is against Brennan and why.
Well, I think that the declassified intel that we've gotten over the past number of weeks shows a very clear seditious conspiracy. So understand that in the summer of 2016, that there was absolutely no predicate, and I don't need to tell you this, there was no predicate to start the Crossfire Hurricane investigation into President Trump and any allegations of Trump-Russia collusion. There was no evidence. Indeed, John Brennan briefed that to President Obama, that this whole thing was being cooked up by Hillary Clinton. So it was false. It was a Clinton smear, but yet the FBI launched it anyway. And then we've got this Steele dossier that both the FBI and the CIA investigated. They knew that it was garbage. They knew that it was coming from the Clinton campaign, but they did it or included it anyway. And now we get to this creation of this Obama ICA document, this Intel Community Assessment that can normally take upwards of a year. I mentioned it earlier. Brennan took charge of that at the direction of Barack Obama. He put together, cooked up this document that had absolutely unverified information in it, garbage intel. He was warned by his Russia operations officers and analysts, don't include it, this Steele dossier. He did anyway, he and Comey. And then, of course, they briefed it to over 200 people in Washington, D.C., as New York Times later said, virtually guaranteeing it would leak. Right, exactly. So it was a final op by Barack Obama, James Comey, and John Brennan to destroy President Trump and rip away the rights of the voters who chose Donald Trump to be in the White House. So all that then collectively is a seditious conspiracy. John Brennan used his position at the CIA at the direction of Barack Obama to attack this country, to try to destroy Donald Trump in his first term. And they got away with a lot. And so that is why I want to see John Brennan in prison. He absolutely.
So that's the inside case against Brennan, Clapper, and Comey. Now, go back to the moment Devin Nunes tried to warn the country in real time that Trump transition officials were being monitored and unmasked. Devin Nunes vindicated.
Good morning, or good afternoon, everyone. I recently confirmed that on numerous occasions, the intelligence community incidentally collected information about U.S. citizens involved in the Trump transition. Details about U.S. persons associated with the incoming administration, details with little or no apparent foreign intelligence value, were widely disseminated in intelligence community reporting. Third, I have confirmed that additional names of Trump transition team members were unmasked. And fourth and finally, I want to be clear, none of this surveillance was related to Russia or the investigation of Russian activities or of the Trump team. The House.
So Nunes says it early. The swamp moved fast to sideline him. Up next, more declassified material points to Hillary Clinton's camp and even George Soros' world pushing the Trump-Russia smear as diversion from her email mess. More declassified documents and emails released by CIA director reveal Clinton, Hillary, conspired with the intelligence community and George Soros to overthrow the United States government in 2016.
Documents contain emails, allegedly from the senior vice president of the George Soros Open Society Foundation. He quotes a Clinton campaign advisor saying, quote, "It will be a long-term affair and to demonize Putin and Trump," and adds that, quote, "Later, the FBI will put more oil into the fire," unquote. Other emails reveal Hillary Clinton approved the idea of tying Trump and Russia to election interference. And that was a scheme hoping the allegations would distract people from her own email scandal. These documents provide clear evidence that Hillary Clinton's campaign was behind the Russia hoax and that the FBI knew what the Clinton team was up to, acknowledging that the info they were receiving about the Trump campaign may have come from the Clinton camp. Despite this, the Obama intel community forged ahead with their 2017 assessment, concluding that Russia aspired to help Trump win the election.
So if Hillary's team helped light the match, the next clip shows who kept the fire burning. Tulsi Gabbard's declassified documents lay out how Obama rejected the original finding and had Brennan's CIA produce the narrative anyway. And this is what we presented earlier.
Just got a peek inside Obama's black book, and it turns out Barack knew the Russia hoax was a hoax all along, but pushed it anyway to sabotage the Trump presidency. DNI Tulsi Gabbard declassifying pages and pages of documents, showing Obama's intel guys briefed him just weeks after the 2016 election that the Russians didn't actually sway the election. Quote, "We assessed that Russian and criminal actors did not impact the recent U.S. election results. Criminal activity also failed to reach the scale and sophistication necessary to change election outcomes." But Obama just couldn't accept that. So he and his staff instructed intel agencies to cook up new reports to support Russia collusion. Quote, "After the meetings, Clapper's executive assistant emailed intelligence community leaders, tasking them to create a new intelligence community assessment per the president's request that detailed the tools Moscow used and actions it took to influence the 2016 election. Tulsi Gabbard described what she found as a conspiracy to subvert the will of the American people. And she says the people involved should be prosecuted and has made a criminal referral to the Department of Justice. We knew Hillary created the dossier, and now we have proof that Barack was calling the shots and the documents to prove it.
So that's the alleged chain of command right there. Obama, Brennan, Comey, Clapper. Now shifting to Trump's response because he's making it clear what comes next, rooting out the deep state holdovers still buried inside the DOJ and FBI. Trump announcing he will hunt down the scum in the deep state after Comey confirmed agents are waiting his term out.
Over the weekend, Mr. President, he suggested that there's still people in your DOJ and FBI that are waiting you out. They're waiting until your administration is over to get back to work. Do you think those people are still in the DOJ and FBI?
I hope not. Well, we're going to seek them out. We'll seek them out. We'll get rid of them. Okay? Because you have in every agency, you have scum. And certainly they did in the FBI and DOJ. But Todd Blanche is doing a fantastic job. Cash is doing a very good job. So we will prevail. I've been standing here a long time with you, many years, right? And they've been saying, I think it's it. I think he's trouble. Here I am, you know. It's a very constant situation, but I think you're going to find that we have great people in the FBI and we have great people in DOJ. Todd Blanche has really been doing a great job.
So President Trump was responding to what Comey said, telling the rank and file to hang on for 2.5 years and they could rebuild under a Democrat.
Not looked at from the top level. The people running it, if you're bragging about forcing out career prosecutors and agents because the president doesn't like a lawful investigation they conducted, something is seriously broken at the top. But I have great confidence in the people down below who are just trying to hang on. And I'm urging them, hang on. 2.5 years, and then we can rebuild these institutions. But we need good people in those roles. America does.
All right. Director Comey, let me turn to your...
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see him in an orange jumpsuit soon. He's basically waving the flag for the same bureaucracy. Trump says he's cleaning out next. John Solomon says new documents inside the FBI may be serious enough. The grand jury will need to hear directly from Obama himself.
If you saw a grand jury subpoena to former President Barack Obama, I think there will be a need to summon him based on some of the evidence that's now public or about to become public. We've done a lot of talking about him, and he can't be indicted most likely, which also means he can't claim the Fifth Amendment. And I would keep an eye on that dynamic. I also think that there is big new documents being found in the last few days inside the FBI, the Justice Department, and inside the intelligence communities that go all the way back to the origins of Crossfire Hurricane, all the way up to and including Jack Smith. And I think there's going to be some pretty big revelations with that. And so you'll have information coming out, and that information immediately being digested into a accountability prosecution team down here in Florida. And so the one takeaway I had from just doing a lot of reporting this week is that I think the grand jury is going to need to hear from Barack Obama to understand some of the things that happened on his watch. And
so we may soon be hearing from Barack Obama because the pressure keeps building. The paper trail may be getting bigger. Solomon adds another piece, text showing Hillary planned to use Biden as the plant that Trump has the Russia problem. That was the plant to line up the public.
Solomon, let's start with the breaking news, and I believe you might have a little bit of news to break either tonight or tomorrow.
Yeah, I do. We'll lean into it right now. So this email was, and these intercepts were part of a very secret U.S. program where we spy on our enemies. And the government has the ability to determine if this email is real, but technology it would have to reveal would be very sensitive. And so there is a balancing act that has played out here in the last few weeks as people decided what to do with this. This is an explosive piece of evidence, but it's just a piece of evidence. We have to now, in the government, find out, did it really happen this way? But I will tell you something that did happen in the summer of 2016. U.S. intelligence, when they first intercepted this, began to look at some other things. Could this be true? Could the Russians really have something? Have they stumbled onto a plot? One of the things they intercepted were text messages that showed that the first thing Hillary Clinton was going to do was to turn to Vice President Joe Biden and see if he would take the first blow against Donald Trump. Would he go out right in the middle of July and say, I think Donald Trump's got a Russia problem? Well, they watched that happen in real time. First in 2 interviews, then at a speech at the Democratic National Committee. It led some of our U.S. intelligence analysts to believe that what the Russians had captured was an ongoing plot and that it was really going on. And then a few days later, the FBI opens up, just like the Russian intelligence suggested. What we are sadly lacking is a complete investigation. This 10 years later, Chris Wray's FBI, John Durham's investigation, the U.S. Intelligence Committee, James Comey never fully investigated this. We could authenticate this if we put our elbow grease into it. The government owes us an answer to find out if this is all true. But
So, what does it mean? It means that the Russiagate debate appears to be moving out of the realm of theory and into the realm of records. That's the real earthquake here. Not just accusations, documentation. Not just outrage, decision change. Supporters of President Trump are arguing that newly declassified files, FBI discoveries, and old suppressed reports could establish who directed the narrative. Barack Obama. Right? Who approved the ICA? And whether officials knowingly advanced claims that did not match underlying intelligence. That's why Devin Nunes is suddenly being discussed again, and that's why Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Crossfire Hurricane, and January 17th all keep resurfacing. The question now is simple. What can be proven, who can be summoned, and how much of this story was hidden from the American people on purpose? And then, of course, there's James Comey out there practically telling people inside the system just to hang on until a Democrat gets power again. Well, President Trump makes clear the deep state cleanup is not over. That is the current moment. The Trump administration is pushing transparency, declassification, and accountability while the old guard is signaling to hold the line and wait it out. Americans have every reason to ask why. If the Russia hoax was built through manipulated intelligence, selective leaks, and coordinated political messaging, then this was not just dirty politics. It was an attack on a duly elected president and on the voters who put him there. President Trump was right to fight. His supporters were right to question, and now the people who smeared him may finally be cornered by their own paper trail. Share this report, comment below, and subscribe if you are done letting the same corrupt class rewrite history. And yes or no, should every official tied to the creation of the Trump-Russia narrative be forced to testify under oath? It's time for that conversation to take place. But I want you to stay connected with me so we can continue to have this conversation. There's a number on the screen, 844-840-4963. Thousands and thousands of patriots have already texted the words raw feed to that number. Why? Because they are sick and tired of being suppressed. They're sick and tired of never getting a notification when the news drops, because you guys depend on the Next News Network to deliver you the unfiltered truth. I want to make sure you continue to get it. We're cutting out the middleman, cutting out YouTube directly. We're going straight to you. So make sure you text those words to 844-840-4963. We are on the cusp of the greatest celebration of our republic. President Trump is behind it, and we are celebrating right alongside him. I want to celebrate with you. We've got some new merch. It's down below in the merch shelf and at the link shop.nextnewsnetwork.com. Pick out some America 250 gear and celebrate America 250 with us.
The system controls information. Information control is power. They don't want you to see this. The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now. You know out.